All right, I'm recording now. All right, Girl Skill listeners, today we have another very special occasion because I have one of my coaching clients and students joining all the way from Melbourne. Well, I say all the way, I'm in Australia as well. We're like on the same time zone, but her name is Emilia, and she's joining me here today on the podcast. Hi, Emilia, how are you?
Hi, well, thank you.
How do you feel being a podcast listener and finding me through this podcast and then being on the podcast yourself now?
I love it. It's I feel like I've crossed something off my bucket list.
Well, not only I've helped you, Emilia, transform in your relationships with men, but also, tick off some of your bucket list items. That's awesome.
Pretty damn good.
Yeah, all right. So we'll start, Emilia, by tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, well, as you said, I'm from Melbourne, Australia. I'm a very driven individual. I'm a project manager, so I'm quite masculine throughout my workday. I'm very busy. I'm fit, healthy. I'm very ambitious. And, that's me. Very simple.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. And so let's start with how did you find about my work? So I already spilled the beans saying that it was through the podcast, but just give me a bit more context.
Yeah, look, I was an avid podcast listener. I was experiencing a bit of relationship turmoil. I'd, been through a marriage breakup and, got into another relationship that was starting and ending, and it just wasn't quite working. And I started Googling certain things like about masculine men, and I stumbled upon your article, Let Him Lead, I think was the one, and I read that and I printed it off and highlighted everything in this article and I carried it with me. And I had read that you had a podcast as well, and I straight away went on and I listened to you, I think, every single day on the way to work until I caught up to like all of your episodes. Then I stalked you on social media and here we are.
Wow. I'm really humbled to hear this. And I know you've told me about this. In fact, when we were coaching together, I was like, one day I said, I need to send this article to Emilia. So I sent it to you and I said, have you read this? And you're like, duh, I've read all of your articles.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be honest with you, Emilia, you're such a great example of a woman and women are different, right? So when I coach with women, some of them never actually take the opportunity to get with me close, right? Like ask questions, but you are just in it. You ask questions, you print stuff, you highlight, you ask questions, you're there, you're constantly in it. You constantly, and you have been one of my best students, to be honest, because you really want it. I can truly see that you're so dedicated to your transformation and you are so inquisitive and you're ready to do things and to transform and to change. And that's just an example of how, and I know you have changed and your journey is continuous, but it's just such an example of, when a woman is determined to do something, she's just going for it. So I really wanted to congratulate you and to say that I'm really proud of you, of how you are just going for it without even thinking like, you might be too much or whatever. You're just there doing your questions, and just doing the work, which is absolutely amazing. So tell me, I hope you remember our discovery call. So you've Googled and then you found my article, then you printed it off, started listening to my podcast. And then what really motivated you to actually sign up for a discovery call and take the next step?
Look, when I started thinking about doing coaching with you, I'd had a couple of opportunities for coaching and didn't quite vibe the individual that was offering it. And it was something I always had in the back of my head. And, I thought, how is this different to seeing a counsellor or, just chatting to someone? And there must be something in there. And I had met a girlfriend who, had said to me, you absolutely have to do coaching. And I was like, okay, great, but, with whom? And at the time, I didn't kind of click that I'd been listening to you for so long. And then I realised you offered coaching as well. I think it was one of your Instagram posts. And yeah, so I thought I'll do set up the discovery call. And I'm not sure if you remember, but in that time, I was in a pretty rough place in my relationship when I decided to do the coaching, when I decided to inquire with you. I think by the time we got around to the discovery call, I had hit absolute rock bottom. So it was actually a really horrible time for me. I had a massive relationship breakup. I had driven myself down to the ground from stress. I'd been through, incredible trauma and turmoil through marriage breakup, my brother passing away, multiple breakups with the same guy. And I just kept pushing and pushing and pushing and putting on the I'm okay facade. And yeah, I just didn't realize how affected I was until I absolutely crashed. And I spent, I'll share this with the listeners. I spent a week in the psych ward from hitting rock bottom because I, just didn't do anything about myself and just thought that I could push through everything. And by the time I came to you, I had, obviously seen professional people. They determined that I was okay, but they told me that pretty much I'd hit a threshold. And what better time? I had to spend a week looking at myself in the mirror thinking, something's here. It's not just the things that have happened in my life. It's not just the events, but there's something that I need to work on within myself as well. And I questioned why this man I'd been with was different to the guys I'd been with previously. And I started to actually listen to myself thinking there must be ways I can improve me. Surely I play a part in this as well. And there's something I'm doing that's not just, the other things outside of me being life events and trauma. So I thought what better time to invest in yourself. I was scared shitless. It was a horrible time for me. My first session was from my mum's couch where I was living with bags of clothes piled up next to me. And yeah, it was not what I envisioned when I first, said, hey, I want to do your coaching. At that point, I was still living at my partner's house and thought everything was okay. So yeah, it was, the timing was, couldn't have been better, I think.
Yeah, we've been together through some tough times, Emilia, and it's, it's really interesting. Whenever I work with women, I always kind of witness them, going through ups and downs and transformations. And now, we're recording this podcast while coronavirus is like taking the world over, and it's like, holy shit, how do we figure this out? But life is life. And so, yeah, beautiful. And I was just curious, Emilia, what did your girlfriend tell you? Why did she say, you absolutely have to do coaching?
So she had the same kind of patterns as me. She had first been had long relationships with very feminine men. So I had two very long relationships and I was very much the man in the relationship. I had to make the decisions. I had to plan everything. And I was talking to her about this one night, how, me and my partner had kept breaking up and getting back together again. And I was like, well, what is this? And we were together at the time. And she said, it's not just him. She said, yes, he has a lot he has to work on, but what are you doing for yourself? You're very busy, you're very driven, you're so great, you look after yourself, you're healthy, you're fit, but there's something else, you're pushing it too hard. And I was like, well, what do you mean? Like, I like to plan things and he doesn't listen and, I just want to plan ahead and I want to know where things are going. And she's like, can you just please, she's like, I did the same thing, feminine men. And then I met someone that I just absolutely adored. But she said I destroyed it because I, kept asking questions, kept pushing, wanting to know where it was going. And she said, I lost the relationship because of that. And she said, if you don't work on yourself, she said, it's the best thing you can do. If you don't do that now, then, you don't know where things are going to go. And I'm not to say it's your fault, but, it's all growth and do this. She said, do it now because, you're in your early 30s. Mm-hmm. Don't wait until you, 45 and think, I should have done something to improve me.
Right. Okay. Yep. So we got to be thankful to that girlfriend. Shout out to Emilia's girlfriend who pushed her into this. And now we're here today. Okay, so let's talk about a little bit about what happened during the coaching. So we know a little bit about how you came to this work, and then you signed up for a discovery call, and then you signed up for coaching with me, and what was your situation before. Now, tell us a little bit what happened during this time, and what were some of your aha moments?
Yeah, so I remember our first call was so confronting for me because I was in a very messy headspace, and we delved into it was a deep dive call for an hour and a half, and we got in quite deep, and I was kind of resisting this, like closing my eyes and, colors, and like, I was like, what is this?
What is this? Why am I here?
What have I got myself into? And I just found myself all of a sudden feeling everything. And I remember I cried on that first call, and it was just so intense for me. And, I was so disciplined the day afterwards, every day, getting up, doing my feminine movement. So I'd put on the audio from you on my mum's lounge room floor, and I was doing this every morning, and then, getting up and going to work. And yeah, it was, that was the start of it. And then I realized very quickly how responsive you were. So, to be able to send you messages and talk to you when I was, going through these things, was incredible. You offered, so much. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And what were some of your, I guess, main points of I don't want to call it awakening because it's too spiritual, I guess, of a word, but really kind of an aha moment during this whole process? Because we've been coaching for about 4 months, I think, and it was that was like 4.5 months ago. I mean, we had a break in between because of unforeseen circumstances, but overall, through these months that we were together, what would you say were some of your biggest kind of, wow moments, or something that you didn't realize before?
Yeah, look, well, for starters, you got me onto, David Data and, this whole concept of polarity, which I'd kind of dabbled in before. And with reading David Data and working with you, combining the two, I resisted it for a long time. But the biggest moment for me was when I realized that you were not his priority. For me, I was just like, what do you mean? Like, I read it in David Data's book. Like, you were talking about how, women, like, we prioritize our lives differently to men. And I just clicked, and I thought about it. And, the more and more and more I thought about it, I was like, I don't want a guy that prioritizes me first. Like, me a year ago would have loved that. I would have adored a man who would just, put me first, which is, the man I married was like that. And it was great while it lasted. But, I want a masculine man now. And that's not a guy that is all about the relationship. I want someone who's, driven in themselves and their business. So, that was the moment for me, was realizing that, you are not his priority. His life purpose is his priority, whether it's his, his family, his business, all of that combined, and then he can provide and offer me everything else because he's content on the outside.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, so let's pause here for a second, because I think maybe a lot of women listening are like, what? This is so counterintuitive when we read this, when we hear this. And you said you had a lot of resistance, so maybe we could talk just a little bit about, like, what do you mean by that? What do you mean you don't want the guy who prioritizes you first? Like, why? Why wouldn't you want that?
Well, I had that. And, while it's cute and everything, it also becomes exhausting. And, I found the guy that was prioritizing me first meant that I was having to do all of the thinking, all of the planning. So I was having to go off to work. Then I was making sure the bills were paid, making sure finances were in check, making sure holidays were organized. And yeah, it's not sexy. There's something so attractive about a man that has his shit together, that has his, his business or his, profession. He's got that down pat. He's got himself down pat, his friends, everything's in check. And then when he's got all that sorted, he can offer you so much more.
Mm-hmm. So I think we need to clarify here that when we say, and this is obviously all from David data, and I talk about this a lot, when we say, I don't want the guy who prioritizes me first, it doesn't mean that he doesn't care about you. It doesn't mean he doesn't love you. It doesn't mean that, you're at the bottom of his list, right? Yeah, it just means, yeah, so how would you explain that? Where are you? So if you're not first, then where are you? And how do you play that role in his life?
Well, for me, I would say it's about him he's going to offer you the best of himself if everything else, if his priority, if his life purpose. So, let's say your situation, his life purpose would be providing for you, right? So, he wants to be able to do his best to, to earn money to be able to provide for you and your daughter. My situation, I'm a, single person. I don't have a child. So his life purpose, might be that it's his business, and that means that then he can offer me a better life by saying, hey, I prioritize this. Therefore, when I come home, I'm content with you because I haven't thought about you all day. I have succeeded in my purpose, and now I can offer you me at my best. I can plan holidays. I can, buy you things. I can treat you like a lady, and that's it.
Yeah, and again, as you talk about this, I'm like thinking of the normal woman, everyday woman, thinking like, what? This is so counterintuitive. But as we talk about, and I know we and you discussed, and now you're in my program as well, so I also share a lot about the polarity principle, right? The feminine and the masculine, how the masculine is all about direction, purpose, achievement, and just going forward, and that release after the achievement is made, while the feminine on the other side of the polarity spectrum is all about surrender and letting go and trust and just be led. Let him lead, essentially. And so when we are with men and I've been with that man before, and that's the breakup with that kind of a man, which I identify as a feminine man, who makes you the center of his world and his universe. In theory, this would sound great to so many women, but in practice, it doesn't really work long time, because in time, you will start to resent him and not trust him and not respect him if you're a feminine essence woman. Because when a man is focused on you 100% of the time, he's not in his masculine, because then the relationship becomes the center stage of his life. And when that happens, he loses his masculine direction and purpose, where it's not you. For us, on the other hand, we talked about this with you recently in the program. For us, on the other hand, the relationship is everything. In fact, the relationships are everything, because we feel and we want to connect. And for us, it's like the priority. I mean, what else if not this? But men just operate on different engines. So understanding that makes a really big shift. And you're right, it is sexy when he's not, when he is really into you, but he's also on his purpose, and you're also going to respect him more. And you're absolutely right. He's also going to show up differently, because and you will sense this in him. You will sense that you can trust him, that he's on purpose and that he's doing something bigger in the world, whether it's, taking care of your family, taking care of his business, and thus providing for you in that way, like really making an achievement out there in the world and proving himself in that way. So building his masculine stamina, or, launching a rocket into Mars or whatever. So, okay, cool. So once you realized that, Emilia, I'm curious, how did anything change in your relationship dynamic?
For sure. So as I mentioned, I've been, back and forth with this man who, I adore, and I would love very much to have a future with him. And yeah, we were not together when I started this coaching, and he noticed a change in me. We caught up a couple of months after we'd been apart, and I'd been coaching with you for some time, and he was like, "You're lighter, something's shifted in you. You're different. I'm really enjoying you." And yeah, it was so refreshing to hear that. I was like, oh, like something's happening in me. You know, I'm obviously seeming different, and yeah, he felt that. So that was really empowering, and it pushed me to keep going. And yeah, so now we're fairly together-ish. But he said I'm a pleasure to be with at the moment, and he's adoring seeing my transition. He said it's actually, you can see it. So that's a really great compliment.
How did you feel when you heard that?
Proud as punch. I look, I know I've put in some solid work, like I really have. And, a lot of it, the things that many women would think, oh, that's not going to change me. So, movement through moving the body and moving the emotions through the body, and music. And, I did the boudoir photo shoot, and he was just blown away. When he saw those photos, he was like, wow. And even more impressed that I did them for me, and the confidence that comes with that. I think the confidence has been a huge thing as well. I was really struggling with that previously in our dynamic, and I think I've offered a really confident version of myself that is a lot more sure of myself, but not in a cocky, disciplined, masculine sure of myself way, not in an egocentric way, but in a feminine way. I don't need you so much, but I'm here and I'm offering something amazing. Take it or leave it.
I love that. That's exactly where we need to be, when we're not. And that's exactly the energy that masculine men are very attracted to. They're very attracted to that energy that's so free and enticing and flowing and, take it or leave it. I'm here. Masculine men love to be with a woman who knows who she is and has exactly that, confident vibe within her, but a feminine confident vibe where I don't need to put any facades or prove to you that I'm something. I'm just me. And so I'm a prize, and, you take it or leave it. It's up to you. And I'm going to choose, in fact, whether you're going to be the one to actually benefit from this or, take this forward. So, beautiful to watch. Any other takeaways from the coaching that you can think of that you really feel like, it has transitioned you into a different place? Like when you look at where you were when we started working together and where you are now, what would you say was the biggest change?
Look, I would say for me, I really resisted that movement, and I felt so stiff when we did the feminine movement together, and I practiced it every morning. I was very disciplined at the start, and then I fell off a little bit and then came back, and then I went on an incredible retreat over New Year where we did I think it's called free dancing. And what you had offered me in your coaching enabled me to move my body in that setting. I don't think I would have been able to do that previously. I would have been frozen to the spot. But because I'd been moving with you and moving daily, and I was provided that opportunity, I really learned how to use my body to process my emotions in the right way as well. Because previously I would thrash my body at the gym and think that going and doing half an hour really hard on the bike, or climbing the stair climber, and boxing or something really full on was how to move through my emotions, whether it was stress, sadness, anger. And I learned that there's a different way to move your body, the feminine way, through movement, through, it's almost like a meditative state that you get into, and, this goddess music that I've put onto my Spotify. If you looked at my Spotify account now compared to a year ago when it was solid gangster rap and music, that's the transition.
Oh my God, I love this. So to all the listeners, what Emilia is talking about is essentially the foundational practices of feminine embodiment. And that's the core of my coaching framework when I work with women in my program, along with polarity. So we move a lot to music. You put it so well in your own words, using your body to process emotions, and that there's a feminine way to do this. And I love the playlists, gangsta versus goddess. Okay, awesome. Well, thanks so much, Emilia. My last question to you is, to all the women listening, obviously there are women who just listen to the podcast just like you and are perhaps wondering whether they should, investigate this or whether they should do coaching or explore, and they had a thought of getting on a discovery call with me. What would you tell them, and why would you recommend actually getting to the program and working with me?
I would say there's no better time than now to work on you. You're only given one of you. You might be working on, your physical self and your self-care, and you might be doing all of that right. You've got a good job, but there's so much more to it. And I honestly thought that all of that surface stuff, the appearance, the healthy body, I thought that was it. And I was like, yep, I'm all good. I'm not crazy or anything, so I'm doing fine. And, I still had the ability to hit absolute rock bottom because I hadn't learnt how to process my emotions and to move through them in my body. And it's, it caused a lot of conflict and turmoil in my relationship because I was so angsty all the time, and I would react in the wrong ways and didn't know how to process the most, simple things such as jealousy or sadness or anger. So I would say, now is the time to do it, and you can get so much out of this. The investment, don't even think about, what you're paying for it. It's such an incredible investment, and Anna is like next level. The support that I got from this coaching is way more than I ever expected. I was like, oh, this will be, a Skype call once a week and that'll be it. But, the homework, the WhatsApp, discussions and voice recordings, it's just been incredible and just so beneficial.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And, it's all you. I mean, as I said, with a lot of my clients, I'm always available when I'm doing one-on-one coaching, although now I've switched more into the program. But, the level of investment and involvement that I'm personally having even in the group, supporting every woman in her journey and just showing up for her, because that's what matters to me. So you being here, Emilia, is the testament to my work, and your success with where you are right now is just showing that this really works. And so this is what matters to me. So I want to thank you so much for being vulnerable and checking off your bucket list and coming on the podcast that you have been listening to and are still listening to. So thanks so much, Emilia. I really appreciate it. You're still in the program, so the journey continues. What are some of the last words that you want to tell listeners of Girl Skill Podcast?
Look, get onto all of Anna's articles, print them off, highlight them and carry them with you, because, they are absolute gold. And I have shifted, I'm not going to say, changed, but shifted so much within myself by, listening to the podcasts. And, Anna, I think you offer something that's so unique. You have this zest and this, feistiness about you as well, which is just so incredible to work with. And, I love how kind of cheeky you are on your podcast and how light you are. And, you're not too serious. And, yeah, it's just incredible. I love it.
Oh, amazing. Thanks so much, Emilia. Wishing you all the best and looking forward to even more transformations and shifts.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Anna.